I walked into Brandon's office, heart pounding with excitement. I had just secured a major partnership deal that would skyrocket his company. I thought he'd be proud. Instead, he slid a stack of papers across the desk. Divorce papers. His voice was cold, sharp. "I've found someone else. I don't need you anymore, not in my life, not in my company." He smirked, thinking he'd left me with nothing. But Brandon forgot one thing. The company is still legally mine. As he walked away, I gripped the papers with trembling hands and whispered, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." You won't believe how this woman turned her husband's betrayal into the ultimate revenge. Stay with me till the end to see how she left him jobless, broken, and begging for forgiveness. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss stories that hit this hard. When I first met Brandon in college, he was the boy everyone overlooked. His clothes were always a little too big, his shoes a little too worn. But his smile? His smile was bright, like he believed the world still had something good to offer him. I believed in that smile. Brandon was struggling with his classes. He worked night shifts at a small diner, barely making enough to eat, but he always talked about building his own company one day. His dream felt so far away, but I clung to it like it was my own. We started dating after I helped him with a business class project. One thing led to another, and soon, we were inseparable. He had no money, but I didn't care. I worked 2 part-time jobs just to keep us afloat. I paid our rent, our bills, even his tuition sometimes when his scholarships fell short. Brandon always promised me, "One day I'll make it up to you. We'll build an empire together." I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I graduated first and immediately started working as a personal assistant. The hours were brutal, but the paychecks were steady. Every penny I made, I poured into Brandon's dream. He talked about starting a small tech company, but the costs kept piling up. Equipment, licenses, office space. I stretched myself thin just to keep his dream alive. Then came the biggest decision of my life. I sold the house my parents left me. It wasn't just a house. It was my childhood home, my safe place. But Brandon needed the money to launch his company, and I convinced myself that love was worth the sacrifice. "We're building our future," I told myself, handing over the house keys to a stranger. With that money, Brandon finally got his company off the ground. And it worked. It really worked. The business took off faster than either of us expected. Clients started pouring in. Brandon's name was suddenly respected in the industry. People called him brilliant, a rising star, the next big thing. But with his success came something else. Distance. At first, he was just busy. Long meetings, late nights, missed dinners. I didn't mind. I wanted him to succeed. I thought, this is just a phase. He's working hard for us. But then the phone started ringing at odd hours. His business trips became more frequent, sometimes lasting weeks. He stopped sharing details with me. I'd ask where he was going, and he'd simply say, "Don't worry about it, Sam. It's just work." One night, I stayed up waiting for him. He came home past midnight, reeking of expensive cologne I didn't recognize. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair a mess, his phone buzzing with messages he refused to open near me. When I confronted him, he just sighed. "Sam, you're overthinking. I'm building something here. You wouldn't understand." I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. We barely spoke at home. I would cook dinner and sit alone at the table while he typed away on his laptop. When I reached for his hand, he would pull away, pretending not to notice. I told myself I was just being insecure, that the man I sacrificed everything for would never betray me. But the gap between us kept growing. Sometimes, I'd catch him smiling at his phone, typing quickly, then locking the screen when I walked by. He stopped wearing his wedding ring, saying it got in the way during work. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. I wanted to believe that all the years I spent building him up, all the nights I cried from exhaustion just to fund his dream, all the things I gave away for him, I wanted to believe they still mattered to him. but I could feel him slipping away piece by piece, and I had no idea just how far he had already gone. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. I was on my way to drop off Brandon's forgotten wallet at his office. I'd done it so many times before that I didn't even think twice. I just wanted to help. When I arrived, his assistant told me he was in a meeting, but I knew where he kept his emergency key. I figured I'd just leave his wallet on his desk and be gone before he noticed. As I pushed open the door to his office, I heard his voice. He was on the phone, pacing by the window, his back turned to me. Then I heard her name. Monica. I froze. His voice softened in a way I hadn't heard in years. "You're my future. I just need to get some things in order. Don't worry. She won't be a problem much longer." My heart stopped. "Your future? She?" He was talking about me. He was planning his life. Without me. I slowly backed out of the room, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the wallet. I didn't want him to see me. I didn't want to hear another word. But I had heard enough. My stomach twisted the whole drive home. My mind ran in circles, trying to convince myself I misunderstood. Maybe it was a business call. Maybe he was talking about some other woman, a client, a friend, anyone but her. When he came home that night, I couldn't hold it in. "Who's Monica?" I asked, staring at him from across the kitchen table. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look guilty. "She's part of the PR team. You're being paranoid, Sam." "Paranoid?" My voice cracked. "I heard you. You called her your future." He rolled his eyes like I was some child throwing a tantrum. "You're twisting things. You always do this." I tried to fight back, but his words sliced me open. "Maybe if you spent less time worrying and more time being a good wife, we wouldn't have these problems." A good wife? Was I not a good wife when I worked double shifts to pay his tuition? Was I not a good wife when I sold my family's house to build his dream? Was I not a good wife when I stayed up nights waiting for him to come home? He made me feel like I was the problem. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a smile. I told him I wanted to fix things. I told him maybe we just needed time away. "A second honeymoon, just the two of us," I whispered, clinging to the last threads of our marriage. For a moment, I saw hesitation in his eyes, but then he shook his head. "I can't. Business is too demanding right now. Maybe later." But later never came. I spent the next few weeks trying to win him back. I packed him lunches, sent him sweet messages, even surprised him with small gifts at work. I tried to make our home warm again. I tried to remind him of what we used to have. But he barely noticed. His phone was always buzzing. He was always out late. He stopped pretending to care. One night, I waited up for him again. Midnight passed. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. When he finally stumbled in, his tie loose, his shirt wrinkled, and that same unfamiliar cologne clinging to him, I asked him straight out, "Were you with Monica?" He laughed. Not in guilt, not in nervousness. He laughed like I was beneath him. "You need to stop this, Sam. It's embarrassing." That was the moment I realized. I wasn't fighting for our marriage. I was fighting alone. He had already left me. He just hadn't said it out loud yet. But soon he would. And when he did, he would have no idea what I was capable of. I didn't know where else to go. I was falling apart. The man I had built my entire life around had already moved on, and I was just stuck. So I called the one person I still trusted, David. David had been my friend since high school. We lost touch for a few years, but he was now a respected lawyer, and if anyone could help me make sense of the mess I was in, it was him. When I walked into his office, I tried to hold it together. But the moment I sat down, the tears came pouring out. "I gave him everything, David," I whispered, my voice shaking. "My time, my money, my life, and now he's trying to throw me away like I'm nothing." David leaned forward, his eyes steady. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." I laid it all out. How I sold my family home, how I funded Brandon's startup, how I supported him for years while he climbed to the top, and how now he was leaving me for another woman. David listened carefully, never interrupting, just taking notes and nodding. Then he asked, "Do you still have any paperwork from when the company was first registered?" I frowned. "I think so. I haven't looked at them in years." "Why?" "Bring them to me," he said firmly. "I want to check something." I didn't understand, but I trusted him. That night, I dug through old boxes in the attic until I found the dusty file labeled Brandon's Company. It still had all the original contracts, registration documents, and share certificates we signed when we first started. I handed everything to David the next morning. He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning quickly until he suddenly paused. "Wait," he muttered, flipping back and forth between two documents. "What is it?" I asked, my heart thudding in my chest. He looked up at me slowly, a strange mix of shock and excitement on his face. "Samantha, did you know you're still the majority shareholder?" I blinked. "What?" "No. Brandon always told me the company was his, that I signed everything over to him years ago." David shook his head, tapping the papers. "That transfer? It was never completed. He never filed the final documents with the state. On paper, you still own 70% of the company." My mouth fell open. "What are you saying?" He smiled, his voice calm but firm. "I'm saying, you don't just own a piece of it. You own it all." The room spun around me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He lied to me. For years, Brandon made me feel like I was nothing, like I was just the woman behind the man. But the truth was, I had always been the one in control. Brandon had built his empire on my foundation, my money, my sacrifices, and he was so arrogant, so careless, that he never made sure the final ownership was transferred. It was still mine. David's eyes narrowed. "If you want to fight, you have every legal right to take it all back." Something shifted in me. I had spent so long begging for Brandon's attention, pleading for scraps of his love. But suddenly I realized I didn't need him. I didn't need his approval. I didn't need his company. I owned his company, and I was going to make sure he never forgot it. A slow smile crept across my face as I whispered, "He has no idea." David leaned back in his chair, watching me carefully. "So, what do you want to do?" I looked down at the documents, my documents, and for the first time in a long while, I felt powerful. "I want to remind him who built that empire," I said softly. "I want to take back everything he thought he could steal from me." David's smile matched mine. "Then let's get to work." That was the moment the seed of revenge was planted deep in my heart, and I was going to water it until it bloomed, right in Brandon's face. Brandon had always been bold, but that night he showed me just how cruel he could really be. It was the company's 10th anniversary, a grand event Brandon insisted on hosting himself. He said it was a celebration of the company's success, a moment to recognize the people who helped build it. I thought I would be standing next to him like I always had, but I was wrong. When I arrived at the venue, the room buzzed with energy. Gold banners with the company's name hung from the ceilings. Waiters floated by with champagne glasses. The crowd was filled with people I had known since the company's early days, people who remembered when Brandon and I worked out of a tiny apartment. But tonight, they barely looked at me. Their eyes were fixed on Brandon as he entered the room with Monica on his arm. She was stunning, dressed in a bright red gown that demanded attention. Brandon didn't let go of her, not even for a second. His smile was wide, his chest puffed like he wanted the entire world to see her. When he stepped up to the microphone, I thought he would at least acknowledge me. After all, I had been there since day one. But instead, he grinned and said something I would never forget. "I couldn't have done this without the most important person in my life, my new partner, Monica Fields." Gasps rippled through the room. Heads turned toward me, then quickly away, as if looking at me too long would burn them. I felt invisible, disposable, like I had never mattered. Monica walked up and kissed Brandon's cheek as the crowd clapped. Some people looked uncomfortable, others pretended not to notice. And me? I stood there, frozen, holding a glass I no longer had the strength to drink. Brandon caught my eye across the room. His smirk was cold, sharp, and full of triumph. He was sending me a message. You've been replaced. Later that night, he cornered me in a quiet hallway near the restrooms. He wasn't pretending anymore. You're embarrassing yourself, Sam. You're holding on to something that's already gone. I clenched my fists, willing myself not to cry in front of him. He pulled out a document from his briefcase. Divorce settlement papers. Sign over your shares, and I'll make sure you get a little something to walk away with. You don't want to drag this out. He made it sound like I was lucky to get anything at all. I looked down at the papers, then back at him. I forced my shoulders to slump, my voice to tremble. Is this really what you want, Brandon? He barely blinked. It's what's best for both of us. I pretended to hesitate. I pretended to be defeated. I wanted him to believe he had broken me. Slowly, I whispered, "Okay, I'll think about it." His grin widened, and he walked away, patting my shoulder like I was some wounded animal that finally gave up. But he didn't know the truth. I wasn't broken. I wasn't walking away. I was just getting started. That night, as I sat alone in my car, I carefully reviewed the settlement papers. I knew I would never sign them, but I wanted to know what kind of man Brandon really was. He was offering me nothing, no shares, no compensation, not even the money I originally invested. He truly believed he had taken everything from me. But Brandon's biggest mistake wasn't cheating on me. It wasn't even humiliating me. His biggest mistake was thinking I was weak. I reached for my phone and called David. "It's time," I told him. "I want to take everything." David's voice was calm, steady. "Are you sure? Once we start, there's no going back." I smiled through my tears. "Oh, I'm sure." From that moment on, I stopped begging for love. Now, I wanted something else. Payback. Brandon thought he had crushed me. He thought I would quietly disappear from his life, signing away my shares and walking off with nothing but broken memories. But he didn't know me at all. I wasn't walking away. I was coming for everything. The very next morning, I met David at his office. His desk was already stacked with company documents, contracts, and legal forms. He had been working through the night. "You ready to do this?" he asked. I nodded, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "More than ready." David carefully explained the plan. We wouldn't scream. We wouldn't fight in public. We would take it all quietly, piece by piece, before Brandon even realized what was happening. First, we filed to freeze the company's accounts. As the majority shareholder, I had the right to suspend financial activities if I suspected mismanagement or fraud. And thanks to Brandon's careless spending and suspicious travel expenses, we had enough to justify it. David moved fast, sending notices to the bank and company accountants. Brandon had no clue. He was too busy parading Monica around like a trophy. Next, we quietly called an emergency board meeting. Most of the board members hadn't seen me in months. Some assumed I was gone, that I'd given up. But when I walked into that boardroom, I saw the flickers of surprise in their eyes. I wasn't the forgotten wife. I was still the majority owner. David presented the facts. He laid out Brandon's breaches, his unauthorized spending, his poor leadership decisions. He made it clear that Brandon had been treating the company like his personal playground. One by one, the board members nodded. Some were reluctant at first, but when I reminded them who saved this company in its early days, who funded it, who believed in it when no one else did, they voted in my favor. I was reinstated as the controlling decision-maker. Brandon had no idea he was already losing everything. For the next few days, we quietly moved behind the scenes. We changed internal authorizations. We updated security protocols. We removed Brandon's name from key accounts. And finally, We changed the locks. It was a Friday morning when Brandon showed up to work, strutting like he owned the world. But when he tried to swipe his access card, the door wouldn't open. He tried again. Nothing. Confused, he walked to the security desk. The guard looked at him coldly and said, "Sorry, Mr. Carter. Your access has been revoked." "What are you talking about?" Brandon barked, his voice rising. The guard simply handed him a letter, signed by me. Brandon's hands trembled as he read it, realizing he had been officially locked out of his own company. His face turned red, his eyes wild with disbelief. He stormed to the glass doors leading to the main office floor, and that's when he saw me. I was standing in the center of the lobby, surrounded by the people who now answered to me. Our eyes met. His fist slammed against the glass. "Samantha, open this door. This is my company." I tilted my head, calm and steady. "Not anymore, Brandon." He pounded the door harder. "You can't do this to me. You can't." I slowly turned and walked away, leaving him screaming behind the glass, helpless. For years I had stood on the outside, watching him build his life without me. But now he was the one on the outside, locked out, powerless, forgotten. And this was only the beginning. The following Monday, I arrived at the office early. Not as the forgotten wife, not as the woman in the background, but as the official CEO. I had signed the papers that morning. The board had voted. The power was mine now, all of it. Brandon still didn't know the full extent of what had happened. He thought getting locked out was just a misunderstanding, a mistake that would be quickly fixed. He probably thought he could bully his way back in. But I wasn't going to give him that chance. I sat behind his no-my-why desk and waited. When Brandon finally stormed in, his face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. He must have been up all weekend calling lawyers, friends, anyone who would listen. He slammed the door behind him. "Sam, what the hell is going on? Why are you doing this?" I looked at him calmly, my hands folded on the desk. "Brandon, you no longer work here." His jaw clenched. "You can't fire me. This is my company." I slid a thick envelope across the desk toward him. "Actually, it's mine. Always was. You just never cared to finish the paperwork." He tore open the envelope, and his hands shook as he read the official termination letter. The reality hit him like a brick. You can't be serious," he whispered, almost laughing in disbelief. "We can fix this. Come on, Sam. Don't throw it all away." "Funny," I said, tilting my head, "because that's exactly what you did." He dropped into the chair across from me, his confidence shattering right in front of me. "Please, I was stupid, I know. But you can't just erase me like this." I leaned in slightly. "I didn't erase you, Brandon. You erased yourself when you thought I didn't matter." His eyes flickered, desperation creeping in. "Look, I can't lose everything. I just can't. Let's talk. We can work something out." But I wasn't there to negotiate. Before he could say another word, the door burst open, and Monica walked in, her heels clicking furiously on the floor. "What's going on? Why is Brandon's access blocked? Why is everyone acting like you're in charge?" I stood up, smoothing the front of my blazer. "Because I am." She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "Monica, your services are no longer needed here." She laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You can't fire me. Brandon hired me." I turned to the head of security who was standing just outside the door. "Escort Ms. Fields out. She no longer works here." The security guard nodded and stepped forward. Monica's eyes widened. "Wait, you're serious?" "Very," I said, my voice sharp. "Feel free to clear your desk now." Monica's face turned beet red. She shot a desperate look at Brandon, but he was too stunned to help her. As the guard guided her out, she hissed, "You're going to regret this." I didn't even blink. "No, I won't." Brandon sank lower in his chair, his hands gripping his head. "You're ruining my life." I shrugged. "I'm simply cleaning up the mess you made." His voice cracked. "Please, Sam. I'll do anything. Just give me something. I have nothing left." I stood tall, circling the desk until I was looking down at him. The same man who once looked down on me. "Exactly," I whispered. "You have nothing left." I walked out of the office, leaving him behind, jobless, broke, and completely abandoned. He built his empire on my sacrifices. He thought he could take it all and walk away clean. But now? Now I had taken it all back. And I wasn't finished yet. Brandon's fall was fast, and it was brutal. The man who once walked through marble hallways with his head high, who barked orders like he was untouchable, suddenly found himself standing on the outside, begging to get back in. When the company officially announced the leadership change, Brandon's name vanished from the website, the building directory, and the client's contact lists. His phone stopped ringing. His calendar dried up. And Monica? She didn't stay long. When Brandon's credit cards were declined and his luxury apartment lease was canceled, she quietly slipped out of his life. No goodbye. No tears. Just a text. "Call me when you're somebody again." His friends, the ones who used to toast champagne with him and pat his back at corporate parties, suddenly had no time for him. They stopped answering his calls. They turned their heads when they saw him in public. Without his title, Brandon was just another man with nothing. And he couldn't stand it. He tried to fight me, of course. He hired lawyers. He filed lawsuits, claiming the company had been stolen from him. He said I manipulated the board, that I forged documents, that I had no right to take control. But David was 10 steps ahead. Every signature, every legal filing, every board meeting, we had done it all by the book. Flawless, clean, unshakable. Brandon's cases were thrown out one after the other. His last lawyer eventually told him the truth. There's nothing left to fight, she owns it. His reputation didn't just take a hit, it collapsed. Word spread quickly. Investors backed away. His name became a cautionary tale. The man who thought he owned everything was now left with nothing but regret. And me? I didn't just move on. I thrived. I rebuilt the home I had once sacrificed. The small house that once belonged to my parents was now mine again. I restored it with love, brick by brick, room by room, until it felt like home for the first time in years. I would sit on the porch in the evenings, sipping tea, feeling the soft breeze. Finally, at peace. One afternoon, as I unpacked the last box of books, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Brandon. Just 2 lines. "Please, just talk to me, I'm sorry." I stared at the screen for a long time. The man who once discarded me like I was worthless was now begging for a chance to speak. For a brief moment, I wondered what he would say if I answered. Would he apologize? Would he cry? Would he ask me to come back? But deep down, I knew his words didn't matter anymore. I had nothing left to say. I placed the phone face down on the table and let the silence wrap around me like a warm blanket. For years, I chased his love. I fought for our marriage. I believed I needed him to be whole. But the truth was simple. I didn't need him. I never did. Brandon had lost everything. But I had finally found myself. I wanted to close this chapter with no loose ends, no lingering doubts, no chance for Brandon to crawl back into the life I'd finally reclaimed. So, I arranged a final public board meeting. The company's senior leadership, shareholders, and key employees were all invited. It was the largest meeting we'd ever held, and I made sure Brandon heard about it. I knew he would come. I wanted him to. The meeting was set in the company's grand conference hall, the very place where Brandon used to stand proudly as the man in charge. But this time, I was the one at the head of the table. As the meeting began, I calmly addressed the room, outlining the company's future. Then, just as I expected, the doors burst open. Brandon stormed in, his hair disheveled, his face pale and drawn. His expensive suit no longer fit him right. It hung loose on his frame, like he'd been shrinking under the weight of his own downfall. He ignored security as they rushed toward him. "Let him through," I said softly, never taking my eyes off him. He walked straight up to me, his voice trembling. "Sam, please. I didn't come to fight. I just want to talk." The room fell silent. Brandon's voice cracked as he pleaded in front of everyone. I was wrong. I was stupid. I got caught up in everything, and I forgot what really mattered. Please, just give me one more chance. We can fix this. There it was, the apology I used to beg for. The words I once would have done anything to hear. But now they meant nothing to me. I stood slowly, letting the silence stretch long enough for the weight of the moment to settle on everyone's shoulders. I met his desperate gaze and spoke, calm and steady. You wanted a divorce, Brandon. Consider this closure. I turned to the board and placed the final document on the table. I've arranged to sell the company to Strathmore Group, our biggest competitor. Gasps rippled through the room. Brandon's eyes widened in horror. No, Sam, you can't. Please, not to them. Anyone but them. You know what they'll do to the company. They'll tear it apart. I looked him in the eye, my voice cold but steady. That's not my problem anymore. He sank to his knees, his voice barely a whisper now. Please, I'll do anything. Don't do this. Don't destroy everything we built. I gently slid the signed contract across the table to the Strathmore representative, who shook my hand with a satisfied smile. The deal was done. The company that Brandon sacrificed our marriage for, the company he used to step over me. It was gone, taken, sold, to his greatest rival. And there was nothing he could do about it. Brandon's last shred of power crumbled right there in front of everyone. I gathered my papers, calmly thanked the board, and turned to leave. As I reached the doors, I paused and looked back at him one last time. He was still on the floor, broken, begging. Goodbye, Brandon, I said softly. I walked out of that room, my head high, my heart light, and for the first time in years, I felt completely free. The sun was shining when I stepped outside. The weight I had carried, the pain, the betrayal, the years I spent chasing a man who never valued me, all of it was gone. I had taken back my life, and I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was finally living. If you loved watching Brandon's downfall, imagine what's coming in our next story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next jaw-dropping revenge. Drop a comment. What would you have done in Samantha's shoes? I'm reading all your thoughts. See you in the next one.